The International Festival of Arts and Ideas is created and produced on the traditional lands of the Mohegan, Mashantucket Pequot, Eastern Pequot, Scotticoke, Golden Hill Paugussett, Niantic, and the Quinnipiac, in the land we all call home, Connecticut. We hope that from wherever you are, you take a moment to acknowledge and honor the native people whose land you are on and the history of the place you are in.
The International Festival of Arts and Ideas stands in solidarity with Black and Brown communities and other groups who are targeted and abused by unjust systems of oppression. We support all movements working to decenter white voices and dismantle white supremacy. We are actively seeking to dismantle systemic racism, and we raise our voices with those in our community who are already engaged in this vital work. We commit to working alongside you to create transformative change in New Haven and in our global community.
Good evening and welcome to the International Festival of Arts and Ideas. Thank you for joining us tonight for the Ideas Talk of Women Navigating the New Normal. Before we begin, I'd like to thank our supporters at the festival, the Connecticut Humanities, City of New Haven, Yale University, National Endowment for the Arts, Connecticut Public Media, and the Community Center for Greater New Haven. Tonight we join Babz, Rawls-Ivy, and Tiheba Bain as they talk about the obstacles women face when returning home from prison. This is an open, honest discussion between two women who have been through the experience. Babz Rawls-Ivy is the co-host and co-producer of Love Babz Talk on WNHHLP Radio in New Haven and editor-in-chief of the Inner City News. Tiheba Bain is the founder of Women Against Mass Incarceration and one of the Great 8 inductees of the Connecticut Hall of Change. Thank you for joining us this evening. And to learn more about the festival, please visit www.artidea.org to find out the times and locations of all our programs coming up this June.
Hey, Tiheba. How
Hi.
are you?
I'm well, and you?
Listen, I'm excited to have this conversation because I don't think we hear enough about women who have gone to prison and have come out and have turned their lives around, so to speak. I really hate that phrase of turning lives around.
Okay.
But I understand why people sort of say it.
All right. Well, I think I kind of agree with you because it's not about turning your life around. It's about making change.
Yes, making
That's
change.
what it's about.
Better
Yes.
choices.
No. Well, we know how that goes, right? I tell you.
Okay, so there's a couple of things I wanted to say to you before we really get started.
Okay.
You know, you had your 10th anniversary for Women Against
Mass incarceration.
10 years you're doing this. What was the number? 10 years?
So the Decade of Excellence was actually my returning from prison 10 years. And Women Against Mass Incarceration was birthed within that 10 years. Even though I had a vision while I was in prison, it just became fruition. So Women Against Mass Incarceration was probably really active since 2015. Okay. So it's a 5-year actually 7. Oh, wow.
I know.
What was I thinking?
feel like the farther I get away from when I get out, the least I remember.
Right. I get it. Because I have this colleague of mine who just came home and she tells me things and I was like, oh, it wasn't like that when I was in there.
I know.
And now it's like, oh, okay.
So let me tell you something about your event that you had in Stanford, which was amazing.
Thank you.
It was really such a good event. And I didn't know what to expect when I walked in there. So I just want to say this to you because I have you in person. I want the whole world to sort of hear this. So, for a long time, when the MC asked the women who have served time to stand up, and I was sitting next to State Rep Robin Porter and her table, and I didn't feel like I belonged in the numbers. And I felt that for quite some time because my sentence is a white-collar crime and I only served 29 days. So I sort of carried this sense of not really belonging in the mass incarceration community. And then Robin set me straight, her son set me straight. And so when the lady came back around again, I stood up and I said my time.
Okay.
Because I heard so much other time and I was like, how can I stand up here with these women who have served ridiculous amounts of time and here I am just 29 days.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. One day is enough. And your days, however long it was or was not, they're still yours, and it was a traumatic experience. So whether it's a day or 29 or 90 or 39 or 37 years, as you have heard, it's still time served. And you can't get that back.
No.
You can't get that back.
You can't get it back.
So yeah, and I'm glad that you actually stood up the second time around, because you are a part of the community, and we don't count a day as you're not a part of. No, absolutely, because women behind bars are the fastest growing population. So you were part of that population.
I feel very much a part of that population.
Okay.
But that was a very watershed moment for me.
Yeah.
I really, I've been out 17 years or so, or whatever it is. And so I was just carrying the weight of that a little bit, even though I work in this community and I do what I can for this particular community. But I think what I found most stunning, Tiheba, is what happens to women when they come out. I say this all the time. When women go to prison, families fall apart.
Yeah.
Men
Absolutely.
go to prison, they got mothers, wives, girlfriends, big mama, somebody, auntie, to hold it down. Women go, and it is a real detriment to the community.
Exactly, and that's why I'm glad that we were able to help you get past that blockade for your time, because when we go to prison, everything, you're right. And that's the same thing. I think we were writing the same book or something, because that's the same thing I say. They were like, because we're the glue. We're the glue to society. We're the glue that holds everything together. And for many, many years, it was men going into prison, but the women held everything down. And when women start going into the prison by the drones, everything was dismantled. Families was dismantled, community, society. That's why I believe we have so many gang members and so many people on the street killing each other, because a lot of their parents, men and women, mothers and fathers, are in prison, and grandmothers.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So where else is there for them to go but to the streets or to each other, and it's like children raising children. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
So when you were serving your time, those early years, and if you want to tell people how much time you served, that's fine. If you don't.
Which time? So yeah.
Time.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, no. Okay. So So I've been in and out of the carceral system for some time, and it was because of my own insecurities, and I was just like hating everything and everyone, and I didn't know how to love myself. So I was using drugs, and I was in and out, and I was just doing things. And mind you, the whole time I was still working, going to school, and doing everything that a normal, non-criminalized citizen does, right? So I was fooling someone, so I thought, when I was actually just fooling myself. But it took, even though I went back and forth to prison, the last time was the most incredible, eye-opening, inspiring time for my life to change. And that's when I did 135 months in a federal prison. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wow, because all those other times they were just like skid bids. If anybody, we know what a skid bid, in and out, right? But this time, I was sentenced with a felony, and I received 135 months. And that, to me, was gracious, because I was looking at way much more time. And in that time, I decided that, before that time, I said, whatever happens, God, I'm just going to give my life over. And I gave my life to Christ, and I just been moving since then. And he just handled everything from there.
What struck you? I know it struck me when I entered the prison camp. I was struck by the first couple of days. I was struck by the kinds of women that were in there. They were not hardened, mean women. They were just everyday, ordinary women who got caught up in systems that some because they made bad choices, some because they were with bad men, and some they were just, the choices were just almost impossible.
Right. Well, when you go inside a prison, so for people that never been, that's what they think. They think it's hardened criminals. They were in prison, they belong there. And even the lady that wrote Michelle Alexander, the one that wrote the new
Jim Crow.
Yeah, she in the intro of her book, she spoke about because she was an attorney, and she was like, no, they belong there, and then somebody had to let her know like that's not always the case. And when she started digging herself and researching and understanding what the real criminal and justice system really is about, that's when she said, oh wow, I didn't realize the contrast and the comparing between Jim Crow and today. So for people that don't know, that's what they think until you get there, until you meet people like you, like me, that say, oh, you know what, they're just normal human beings that made a wrong decision, made a bad choice, didn't know what to do or how to get out of whatever it is they were in, or it was just like, oh, well, I was following behind my boyfriend, and I thought he would help me. When your boyfriend is the one that threw you under the bus, girl.
Yeah.
Like, you're doing 30 years and he's out. And you don't see him no more. I've been around that. I've seen that.
Oh, I've seen it too. I've seen it firsthand.
Yeah.
Young sisters. And I'm like, oh, that was just, it's pretty heavy. I think the second thing that struck me is the amount of women who could not read and write. That really bothered me. And it still bothers me. It still bothers me, Tiheba, because I can't imagine how these women get this far in their life and not be able to read and write. I think that's a huge travesty.
It is a travesty
that we're not looking at,
and we're not. And people see they said leave no one behind, right? So that's the school system. That's the school system outside of the prison system, right? So what happens there? Like, if they get lost with the weeds in the weeds, and they don't know how to navigate society. So then they turn to criminology. Right, and then then they end up in prison. There was this one young lady that I was in a federal prison with, and she couldn't read, and she was embarrassed, and I had to tell her, listen, you're here, you have nothing but time. Learn how to read, learn how to write, and she did. And what was the catalyst for her was the Bible. We sat down and we read the Bible, and she was able. By the time I left, she was still there. She was reading the Bible by herself, and it's sad because when you release people that don't know how to read back into society, the only other places for them to go is back to prison or something else or worse. So we need to tap into that. And I think education is a really essential element for reentry, successful reentry. Because when you, for instance, I was a straight A student. I know how to read and write, but I didn't appreciate my education until I was in prison. And when I was in prison, I was like, you know what? I can't come back here. So what's going to keep me from coming back here? Educating myself, marketing myself, becoming more valuable to society as well as to myself to keep me from coming to prison. And education was the apparatus that did it. I came home. I was in prison and I went to school. When I came home from prison, I continued that path. And I graduated with a dual bachelor's degree. And I'm on the fence about law school and public policy right now. But yeah, and that helped me stay motivated and stay, focused on my reentry. So yeah, it's essential and we need to have it. But we need to talk about that because people in prison don't know how to read and write. And they're coming home.
And there seems to be this mindset of not putting things in place in prison to sort of help women before they get out. I found prison to be, I was like, you have this audience. They're not going anywhere. You could program stuff and give these women a fighting chance even before they cross out, before they go out the door. But there's this mindset that this has to be punishment, and they don't deserve anything, and they don't deserve opportunity, and they don't deserve support and mental health. They don't deserve anything. And so you have these women, you work, if you're lucky to get a job while you're in there for pennies.
Yeah,
but there's no
pennies,
and if there's like maybe a church group that comes in that provides, prayer stuff, that's your really only other outlet.
Oh Lord, yeah. Okay, so that right there is a whole nother gamut. But you're absolutely correct because we're dealing with that right now. To be honest with you, like Women Against Mass Incarceration and other organizations are looking to combat the Department of Corrections, asking for greater resources for the women while they're inside, not just someone coming in from church. Believe me, I love the church.
Yes,
but
we need,
yes,
yes.
We need that too, but we don't need, that's not all we need, because that's all you're really giving us. We don't, crochet is great, knitting is right. Yeah, we need hats.
Yeah, art therapy is amazing.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
For it. I'm here for it.
Absolutely, but there's other skills out there that we definitely need, and we're looking for that to happen, and it's unfortunate because they don't. But you got to understand, it's job security. Why? Why would I give you something that can better you, and keep you from coming in here? Because that means I'm out of a job. Department of Corrections. Ooh. Like, seriously.
Right? I feel everything about that.
Yeah, because if I know that if I'm sending you back out there the same way you came back in, then you're going to come right back. But if I'm sending you out there better than you were when you came in, then you're not coming back. And that means that I could possibly be out of a job in 5 to 10 years. And why would I want to do that? I have kids to feed. I have a mortgage to pay. No, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But it take grassroots organizers and organizations to actually make things happen. Policy, and regulatory, regulations, because the Department of Corrections is governed by who? The governor, right?
Yes.
It's not governed by anything else. And governor have one person sitting on parole boards, one person that's like connecting with the governor's office, OPM, I believe. And it's nothing really, it's no oversight. It's nothing happening. And they do what they want. We just took a few years ago, a woman had a baby in the toilet.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And what happened?
And we would never accept that. If we heard that story in somebody else's country, we would just be outraged.
Right. But this happened here in our own state, Connecticut. It wasn't in another part of the country. It was in our state. And nothing happened. They kept passing a buck. It wasn't me, it was her. It wasn't him, it was me. It wasn't and nothing happened. And this young lady, now they're suing, but it shouldn't have never happened. But that right there tells the story all by itself.
I'm also struck, Tiheba, by oftentimes when women go to prison, sometimes they lose their children to foster care.
Ooh.
And when they lose their children to foster care, sometimes they can't get them back.
Yeah, I do.
Listen, I have 4 children that I adopted, and one of them had a biological parent that was in and out of the system, and she made the decision to sign away her parental rights, and the family didn't want this child, so.
Well, God bless that child. But there are other parents that do want their children.
Yes.
And they can't get them because there's this thing, ASFA. You ever heard of it? Mm-hmm. The Adoption Safe Family Act. Well, in 1997, our dear President Biden, who wasn't president at the time, signed this into law, and that gives the government right to terminate parents' rights after 15 years of 15 months, 12 to 15 months of being absent in their lives.
Yeah.
So if I'm on pretrial. Now, let's talk about it a little bit, right? Okay, so I'm on pretrial, right? I got arrested. I'm not found guilty. I haven't been convicted. I'm back and forth because I'm still in jail because I can't make bail. I'm back and forth to court.
That's another point of contention, bail.
Bail. Mm-hmm. I'm back and forth to court, but because I can't make bail, I have to stay in prison to go back and forth to court. So that and it doesn't happen overnight. So we know pretrial can actually take up to 2 years or longer. So if I'm in prison for 15 months or 12 months, depending on what state you're in, and I'm not in a child's life, my parental rights can be terminated because of ASFA, the Adoption Safe Family Act. Had nothing to do with what I did to my children. It's just the fact that I'm not there because I'm being held on a high bond. I don't have money to bail out, and I can't be in my kid's life consistently for this time because I'm back and forth and I'm in prison. But you don't take that into account. You just want to terminate my parental rights because I can't afford to get out of your prison, your jail system, and I have yet to be convicted, and I may not be convicted. It hasn't happened yet. Mm-hmm. But yet and still, this is America, right?
And this is a problem that is unique to women.
Yes.
Very unique to women. And this is the part that this is the non-sexy stuff that doesn't make it to the press, right? Like, this is the stuff that you don't see. It's not sexy. And losing your children should not be a part of your sentence.
Nope. It shouldn't be. But it is.
It is.
It is. And I had to terminate my rights temporarily while I was in prison to keep them from, taking my kids away. And I gave them to my my niece. I mean, my sister-in-law. But yeah, I had to go through a whole process myself. And I realized, like, are you serious? But nobody's handling. Do you know that the criminal and justice system is parallel to the child welfare system? Like, seriously parallel. And then people don't understand that, but it is. It's like a sister to each other. They're sisters. They may be twins. We don't know. But they are, right?
But see, this is why this is important to have these conversations with women who have come out. And I get it. Some women, who come out, they don't want to have these conversations. They want to just get on with their life and put this time behind them. But we need some women to come forward and say, this is what is happening, and we need this. We need policies to sort of circumvent what is happening.
Right. Policies.
Yes.
Let's talk about policies.
Policies.
Let's talk about policies.
Listen, we might be coming to somebody's law school soon because we all in this now.
Yes. Okay, so policy. I was part of a policy. I was part of changing policy for women that's in prison right now for the anti-shackling and the dignity here in Connecticut. Yes. We won that thing unanimously.
Let's just remind people.
Okay.
There was this practice of shackling women to the bed if they were in labor, get ready to have active labor, right?
Right. If you went to prison pregnant and you weren't home by the time you gave birth, in order for you to give birth, you had to be shackled to the bed, to the gurney, and giving birth. Now, we already know giving birth is already anguish. It's like, oh my God. You do not need to be shackled.
Because where are you going?
Handcuffed. Exactly. While you're
not going anywhere.
No, because unless you just want to be kept from getting hit, because sometimes that happens, But I'm just saying because the pain. Like I'm just saying that was a joke. But anyway, it was a sad situation, and even when a person is pregnant and they're going to and from like appointments, doctor's appointments. Now it's literally hogtied. You were literally hogtied. Your ankles were shackled, and your hands were shackled to a belt in front of you. And you would walk literally like cattle on, going to slaughter because you were just shackled like that, going to and from your appointments. Pregnant women, how dare you?
I mean, the level of humiliation and the lack of humanity around that, is
it's a man's world.
It's just stunning.
Yeah,
because we don't do that to men.
No. Men don't do that to men.
No.
That's why I say it's a man's world.
And listen, men going to prison is hard. This is not about bashing men who go to prison.
Oh, no.
And it is not about let's tell more women's stories that are harder than men's stories. That's not it. I think what we want to do here in this conversation is just let people know that there are stories like this happening to women all across this country in prisons.
Yes.
And it's not talked about. And women in prison is the highest growing population of the complex system.
Yep, by over 700%.
Yeah.
Yes. Over the last 30 years, it rose from 1970 to maybe having 1 or 2 women, like the population per capita, to actually having over 2 million. 200,000, something like that per capita. That's just crazy. And wonder how and why and when did this start?
Yes.
Oh, don't get me started.
and then you throw in for-profit prisons.
Yeah, okay. Okay, well, we trying to get rid of those too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think we should, because for-profit means you need X amount of people in that prison to make a profit.
Shut it down. Shut it down. Don't even open it up. Don't even come to the state. Don't do it, because we got people waiting for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, not going to happen. I have somebody right here, like, I'm calling, hey, they coming. Okay, he'll be on the plane in a minute. Shut it down. Talking about some rallying and some organizing. Connecticut never seen it. Exactly.
Okay, so Tiheba, when women come out of prison,
yes,
are there halfway houses for women?
No. Well, that's not necessarily completely.
Well, one doesn't count.
True.
Does one count?
One maybe count.
Okay.
It's one. but it's one, right? It's not like 21.
But there are a great many shelters for men coming out of prison.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like, just about in every town, there's a low-key men shelter halfway house. There's nothing for women.
Well, that goes back to the fact that women was entering in so fast, right? Men was already known to go into the prison system, so they had everything almost set up for them, right? But when women started going, they didn't know what to do because it wasn't in the rule book, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So when they added it to the rule book, they forgot to add the resources. They forgot to add the aftercare. They forgot to add the collateral consequences that comes behind that, which is halfway houses, transitional houses, child care. They forgot to add, like, women having babies going to prison. I mean, women pregnant going to prison. And what are we going to do with the child? So they had to implement this as they went. And it's still today, like, not enough transitional housing or halfway houses for women. Not at all. Mm-hmm. And then when you do get them, let's talk about when you do get them, right? Because when you get approved for one, it's governed by who? The DOC. And the DOC treat them like you still in prison. I deal with a halfway house right now, and the lady, and everything is governed by the Department of Corrections. Everything that the halfway house does is governed by Department of Corrections. So what that means is that the women are halfway in, halfway out. Yeah, this is true, and nobody's saying you're completely free, but you have to give them some sort of freedom in order for them to thrive, and they're not thriving the way they should because everything is run and operated and governed by Department of Corrections. Then leave me there until end of my sentence and let me come home.
And let me walk out free.
Exactly.
Not owing you a damn thing.
And that's and then when you do that, you need to know, like, we need to support, right? We need families. Right, because some people in the halfway houses, they stay in the halfway house for so long, and they don't have family support. They can't go to their mother's house. They can't go to the sister's house, to the friend's house, because they didn't burn so many bridges. So that's another thing that we need to talk about, because, like you said, when a man come home or a man is in prison, they have a whole bunch of resources. If my son was to go to prison, unfortunately, he doesn't go to prison, and he come home, he doesn't just have me. He have his girlfriend. He have his brother. He has his uncle. He have his aunt. We don't have that. We don't, and it's sad. So we have to set things up and set things in place for when women come home. And the transitional halfway houses are good if they're run properly.
And the other part of that, Tiheba, is that there's so many things that can send you back to prison.
Oh.
I mean, I think it was like 120, like some ridiculous amount of things that can send you back to prison.
154 barriers.
Yes, 154 barriers
yeah.
that could send you back to prison if you violate them. And when people see the list, or when they understand what those are, they're like, really?
Exactly. And that's the thing. So you're walking on pins and needles, right? I'm free, but I'm walking on pins and needles. And you don't know what to do and what not to do, because any little thing can send you back. And so when you come home from prison and you're on probation, you're on parole, and you're in a halfway house, it's not as easy as to re-enter as people may think. Oh, well, you're home now. So what's the problem?
No.
The problem is the 154 barriers that stand before me. And people don't know that.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about the what they call bracelets.
Oh, I had an ankle bracelet for 5 months.
It's not a bracelet. It doesn't adorn you. It doesn't make you look good. It's not pretty.
No.
It's a shackle.
It's a shackle. It's an electronic leash.
Yes, it is. But everybody says it's a bracelet.
And they're like, you have this. You could go this amount of places. Like
right.
You the radius around your house. Like if you leave.
Don't even step outside the gate. They're coming for you. They're not going to. Don't even think you're going to sleep, Babz, because you're not. You're going back to prison. So and that's the thing. Like people say, I want to go home. I want to go on home confinement. They hear home,
and they think, oh, this will be
because they miss confinement.
Yeah.
The confinement is what grabs you and keeps you. Mm-hmm. My son, he did get in trouble, and he was on home confinement. He had that shackle on his leg, and I promise you, it was the worst part of his life ever. And when he finally got it off, my son slept for 2 weeks straight. Like, he was able to sleep properly, because when he went to work, he was all tense on pins and needles, because, and if the thing get wet, it's your fault.
Yeah.
If the thing malfunctions, it's
your
your
fault.
fault. If I
And
can't
in
get a
some cases,
pain,
you have to pay. It comes out of your.
Yeah.
You have to pay for that some kind of way.
that's
People don't know
yeah.
that part. I didn't for whatever reason.
Because
they didn't.
that's in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
That's in the last 10 years.
Okay.
That it wasn't like that before. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's horrible. The criminal and justice system is just not good for men, women, children, nobody. They just need to shut it down.
So when people are like, "Oh, just go," send people to prison.
No.
I think we need to reimagine what prison looks like, and for women especially, separating children from their mother. And then when women come out, they have to not only try to find a job, sometimes they have to find housing, and then try to reunify with their children. All these things, all while being responsible to their parole person.
Right. Exactly. And that was me. That was me 10 years ago. Yeah, absolutely. And it was hard. It was daunting. And I just did what I had to do. I focused, and I just, got down and deep in the trenches and just said, I'm just going to do whatever it is I need to do and forget what you're saying. I just know what I need to do. So I came home with a plan. And I gave them them my plan.
That's what I would love for every prison where women are, to allow them to have a plan before they step out of that door. To just turn them loose without a plan just seems like a prescription for return.
Yeah,
or recidivism.
Right? Exactly. Yes. Well, I created my plan because I decided I wasn't coming back. And I was like, you know what, this is not good. And, I guess my eyes opened in the 135-month sentence that I got. But I was like, oh, no, this isn't for me anymore. So what am I going to do? And I decided to make the compound my campus. Mm-hmm. Like everything that was afforded to me, I was going to take, I was going to glean, I was going to use, and I was going to eat, and I was going to sponge it up. So when I came home, I was going to just wring it out and just, that's what it is, right? So I came home with a plan because I knew I wasn't coming back to prison. Like that wasn't going to happen. And so that's why I do what I do now, because I want somebody, when I talk to the women in prison today, I was like, so what you going to do when you get out? They were like, what do you mean?
Yeah. Because it doesn't occur to them.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. Until you're back in prison.
Yeah.
Well, I came home with a plan, Babz, and when I came home, I set out to complete everything that's on my goal list. I'm not completed, but it's halfway over. Mm-hmm. It's halfway done. And even more so, stuff that I didn't even think was going to be on my, I was going to accomplish, I accomplished. And so it's like, I try to give them a heads up as what it is that you need to do. Mm-hmm. Write it out. Where you see yourself in 3 years. Where you see yourself in 5 years.
And, that's just coaching, right? Like, prisons have captive audience.
Exactly.
They could build this in. It takes nothing. If you had a progressive enough warden who would allow, for folks to come in and walk these women through some self-analysis and self-awareness kind of things, they could really build a better lives for themselves.
Well, I'm going to have to give a shout out to Trina Sexton. Trina Sexton is a semi-progressive warden. She has allowed women against mass incarceration to come in. And during COVID, right, we can't go in now because of COVID. The numbers go up and down. And so, but we were able to give gift packages to the women. We gave over 2,000 gift packages to the women. And at one point, we were actually able to go into the prison and hand them out one by one to as many women that were in there, and that was able to come and meet us. And it was so wonderful. And she said when COVID lifts and she get the okay to do it, she will allow us to come in there to do certain trainings like that. Because we have this one training called Moving On. It's cognitive behavioral therapy. Mm-hmm. So it's going to help the women understand. And what better person is it to come from but us, right?
Yes.
Someone that lived it, lived experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
And everybody that's in prison has got a trauma story.
Oh.
I don't know anybody in prison who doesn't have a trauma story. Whether your thing was a drug trauma story or abuse or my trauma story is trafficking, but that's not why I committed my crime. But I would imagine if I sat with a therapist, they probably would say, they would connect the dots,
right?
From, this is where it came out at. But everybody has a trauma story, and it's unpacked trauma story. So you imagine carrying your trauma with you and never dealing with it, never unpacking it, never letting it be known to people, and you're walking around with that level of pain, you're going to do some bad things.
Yeah.
You're going to do bad things.
They filled in a prison.
Yeah.
Prison are filled with them.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Because we don't, you ever heard this saying, what happens in here stays in here?
Yeah.
You don't take our business into the street.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why, because we never was taught how to speak what it is that we need to address and feel.
Yeah.
So I have to carry all that because I can't tell you because I was taught not to tell you.
Of course, yes. I mean, I know that story. So
right, so that's where and that's the thing, right? So when we come out of something, it's not just the surface part of it; it's the depth of what is actually causing the surface, or what you're seeing on the surface. So if we can get to the depth of the root of the problem, and go deep inside of there, I think it'll be a lot more healing and a lot less recidivism.
I think
and that's
so.
what we're looking for.
I think you're right.
Absolutely.
I feel very strongly about that. Yeah. So before we wrap up, because how are we doing for time, team?
You're doing good. You have a few more minutes.
Okay.
About to give you 5.
All right. So
wow.
You know what? While we're sitting here dreaming and wishing, if we could
hoping and I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's just a
no,
moment.
that's a good song. How would we reimagine prison?
I don't reimagine prison. No.
I'm glad that I'm glad you said that.
I'm
so
an abolitionist.
What would we do? What would we do? What could we do? What should we do?
Okay, so I do not reimagine prison. I am an abolitionist.
I'm no longer reimagining prison either.
I reimagine society. I reimagine community, reinventing the community. We have to give back into the community so the community won't give into the prisons. If you feed us, nourish us, help us, teach us, guess what? We can live. Jesus said, I'm going to teach you to become fishermen of men, right? I'm not going to fish for you and grab the fish. I could do that. I could catch the fish, but I want to teach you to be catchers of men, right? Am I saying that right?
I get the gist.
You get the gist. Okay, great. And I'm a man.
I want to give you the skill set so that you can fish.
Right, exactly. And I'm a minister, right? So I should have known that. But anyway. So my thing is, but that's the whole thing, right? I want to teach you how to become better. I want to teach you how to live better. I want to teach you how to understand your pain, your trauma, deal with it, address it, acknowledge it, confront it, and let it go. See, and that's another thing. We don't let things go. We want to hold on to it. That's just making us feel good. But you're that dog sitting on the nail you're whimpering because you're in pain. Get up off the nail, right? And that's what I want to teach you. Get up, move. Because if you don't move, you're going to stay the same. You got to move.
Yes. Yes. Well, this has been two sisters talking their lived experience about women who go to prison. We are women who went to prison. We are your sisters, your neighbors. We are the women that sit next to you in church. You see us in the grocery store. We're not those scary monsters that the movies make us out to be. And we are able-bodied women out here raising children, raising family, and trying to live our best lives. So I hope that you got a sense of an intimate conversation between two sisters just talking about something that does not get enough attention, women and what it means to go to prison.
Right.
It's good to see you.
Navigating a new norm.
The new normal.
I tell you. It's good to see you too. This was great. Yes. Oh my God, this is awesome.
Thank you, Arts and Ideas Festival.
Yes. Thank you.